Today, we're going to be building out a cold email outreach automation. It is the exact same system I've used to scale my automation agency to over $10,000 a month in revenue, and it is one of the most important systems that any business owner can have. Since this system is so important, I thought it would actually be really fun to build them out in both Make.com and N8N at the same time, side by side. So we're going to go through step by step and build out this outreach automation in both platforms simultaneously. I'm basically doing this just to show you that you don't have to be scared of N8N if you're familiar with Make.com, or that you don't have to be scared of Make.com if you're familiar with N8N. My goal is always to teach you concepts. So if you understand the concepts, you can apply them in whichever platform you personally feel the most comfortable. There's a couple simple tools we're going to be using to do this. Of course, our automation platform, either N8N or Make.com. We're going to be using Apify to scrape leads from a system called Apollo. This is extremely cheap to run, extremely efficient. We're going to be using ChatGPT to do some filtering and create all our personalized messages for our email out. And then from there, you can basically hook this up to whatever email platform you want. If you just want to send this through Gmail, you're free to do so. You can use Phantom Buster. You can use Instantly. The choice is up to you. So let's hop right in and let's get started building this thing. So on the left over here, one of the first things you need to be familiar with is a site called Apify. This site basically has a whole bunch of scrapers for every single platform: LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, you name it. What we're going to be scraping today is called Apollo, and it's basically a resource that is an entire database full of leads for your business, and they are all perfectly categorized. They have names, they have email addresses, some of them even have phone numbers for you to contact. It's really important that you're familiar with this first because this is where all of your data comes from. So basically, we're going to take the information from here. We're going to store it inside of a database here using Google Sheets, and then we're going to be able to create a personalized message for every single person that we want. First thing we need to do here inside of Apify is just search for Apollo. And we're just going to use this first one, Apollo Scraper, scrape up to 50,000 leads. It's $1.20 for every 1,000 leads. That's literally like less than a penny per lead. Like, it's extremely cheap. And what's even cooler about Apollo is that basically they give you $5 free every single month. So unless you're scraping like 10 million leads, like, you're not going to hit that amount. I'll leave a link in the description where you can go ahead and join. From there, one of the things you need to be familiar with is basically just this search URL. This is how Apollo is searching the database to get leads for you that fit specific criteria, like any sort of keywords, the location, like the company size, things like that. I've already created a little prompt here to help us generate these search keywords with a couple key things, like the organization location, the number of employees, any sort of keywords, or things like that. I'll also leave a link in the description where you can get access to the school community, which will have all of the prompts that we use today, as well as all of the blueprints for Make.com and all the workflows for N8N. So all you have to do is download those and pop them into your system, and you can get started using them right away. This growing community also has a ton of courses on how to grow your social media, how to grow your business, how to make more money, how to build more efficient systems, and things like that. And we are growing by the day. We'd love to have you. Anyway, let's go back to Apollo because this is where we start. And so basically what Apollo does, and we can see it over here in this little JSON format, and this is that same URL. It basically just takes a URL full of your search terms, and this is what it uses to search. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use ChatGPT to generate that URL for us, depending on the criteria that we set. So this is going to be relevant to anyone. It's just going to take a natural language, and it's going to turn it into that URL so we can get our leads. So the first thing we need here is an input. And inside of N8N, I'm just going to use a form, which is an N8N form, and we can go ahead on an N8N form event, and we can just go ahead and we can call this lead gen. And basically, we want to add a form element down here, and we can just call this target audience. And so now when we run this, we can just go ahead and test it. You can see we get this little form that pops up, and you can literally just come in here and type in like creative agencies, 100 to 200 employees, and we can say like, United States or something like that. So eventually, once we send this up, it'll hook this up, and those will become the search terms that we want to search for. On the right-hand side over in Make.com, we can just do this really simply with like a set variable module, right? So we can go ahead and click the plus and go into set variable, and we can just call this the same thing, target audience. So now anytime we come into Make and we want to run this automation, we can do the same thing. Creative agencies, 100 to 200 people. We can say United States. And so we'll just save this for now, and we're good to go. And we can just call this target audience. Great. So the next thing we need to do is we need to feed that target audience into ChatGPT to turn this into a URL. And the reason that we're doing this is so basically we can come into this system multiple times a day or whenever we want, and we can change the audience that we're looking for. And the system is always going to be able to scrape for new leads for us. So we'll just start an NAN over here. I'm just going to type in basic. I like using the basic LLM chain because it gives us options. We'll go ahead and do define below. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the system prompt here. It just says you're a URL generation agent. Your task is to convert natural language input into a valid Apollo search URL string. Then it gives us the output that we always want to output as, some of the rules, an example for the output, and some other things like this about how to behave. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to go to add a prompt, and this is going to be the system prompt. And I'll turn this into an expression because I think it looks nicer. And you can go ahead and we can see the expression up here. The other thing we just need is the input. So we're just going to go ahead here and pipe in the input, which is just really coming from the form before. So we'll go ahead and you can see that because we actually have data inside of this form, this is actually populating with our query right here. And the last thing we need to do to be able to use this is we actually need to hook up a chat model. So I'll just type in OpenAI, come in here, just select my appropriate account. If you don't know how to get your OpenAI key, I'll leave a link somewhere up at the top with a video that I made that in under 2 minutes, you'll be able to get your OpenAI API key. GPT-4o Mini is okay because it's a pretty basic setup, and we can just call this URL generator. And if we come in here, and I can just go ahead and I can click test step, just give this a second to run. Now you can see we have an entire URL that we can go ahead and we can use to scrape new leads. We can go ahead and just do the same thing over in make.com. So I'll just go ahead and click a plus, go to OpenAI, I'm going to go to show more. And what I want to do is create a completion. And we're basically doing the exact same thing, which is great. The model, I'll check O4 Mini. This is great. Let this load for a second. Great. So basically we want to just go ahead and we're just going to add 2 messages. And the first one is going to be the user message, just like we have before. And the second one will be the system message. I should already have that user message copied, although it's actually not going to work the same. So I'm just going to say target audience. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to drag the target audience from before over into this. Then what we'll do, we'll just come back here and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to grab the system prompt that we used earlier. So now we can go ahead and we can come in here and we can just run this once. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to click save. So we can just come in here and we can run this and basically the same thing is going to happen. It's going to get our search query. It's going to run this through OpenAI. And now if we just come into the output here, we can go into the result. We can have our URL right here all created for us. And if we go into the output bundles, you can actually see the entire thing. And now what we need to do is we actually need to connect this up to the Apify scraper. So let me show you how the scraper essentially works. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click start and I'm going to let this run once. And now what we're doing is you can see this is what the scraper looks like. This is the log. It's going to go ahead and it's going to scrape all of the things that we need it to. And if I come into the runs and just go into the output, I can preview the output in a new tab. And you can see this was just the default search. This wasn't adapted to us yet. We're going to go ahead and do that in a second. You can see the city, the department. We can see the emails that come in. We can see the verified status or not. Like if you want to filter by verified emails, feel free. So we have all the stuff that comes in for our new leads. And there's a ton of information here. We likely don't need all of it. Again, in this little database that I built, I literally just have first name, last name, company, their website. We're going to do a little additional research, their email address, and then at the end, the personalized message. We actually really don't need that much. Although there's probably one more thing that I would add. I'd probably just add like job title. Just go ahead, move that over here. So now what we can do is hook this up to an HTTP request inside of N8N in order to call Apify. And make.com is actually a little bit easier. They actually have a built-in Apify node. So first, actually, why don't we show the slightly easier way to do this? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the plus. I'm going to go to Apify and I'm going to click run an actor. I already have an Apify connection set up. If you want to create a new one, just go ahead and click add and it'll ask you for an API token or an Apify connection. I actually already have an API token, so that's super easy for me. Basically, the way to find it is if you come into Apify down here, you just want to go into your settings, this little gear. You can go into API and integrations, just copy your little API key and you can just go ahead and paste this in here to create a brand new connection. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm actually going to do that to create a new connection now. We can go ahead and here and go into the actors and you can see here now we have the Apollo scraper, which is the actor that we've created or that we're interacting with. If you don't see this in here, one thing you have to do is you either need to run the actor one time or you can see it's grayed out for me. You just want to make sure you click save. So it basically saves this actor to your account so that the Apify nodes and stuff actually recognizes that it exists and you might want to be searching for it. So if you don't see it, just make sure you click save. You don't even have to run it. The other thing you need to make sure you do inside of make.com is click yes to run synchronously. What this means is that basically it's going to wait for the scraper to finish before moving on to the rest of the flow. This is important because otherwise, if you have this as no, it's going to try to move on immediately before there's actually any data, and you're just going to get an error and you're going to have wasted all your time and all your credits doing the searching. So make sure you just click yes to avoid any errors. And so what you need here is the input JSON. So basically this is coming back inside of the actor, inside of Apify. And this is just this JSON here that we looked at a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this. I'm just going to paste this in right here. And the only thing we need to do now is we actually just want to delete the URL that's in there. And now we can just go ahead and we can pipe in the result from ChatGPT before us. So now this is piping in the custom URL that we created using ChatGPT based off of our search criteria for our target audience. And if you want, I just have this set to 50 records. You can change this to 500 or 1,000 records. I kept it small just for the sake of this demo. But again, you can go ahead and change the number of records that it searches. Cool. So let's just go ahead and let's just run this once. This might take a couple seconds because we have to create the URL. Now we're sending this to the Apify actor to go ahead and scrape the search query that we created inside of ChatGPT. And hopefully in just a couple of seconds, we should have some results. Now, this is great. This worked. We can see the status succeeded, but we can't actually see anything yet. And that's because we need one more module from Apify. And here we need to go to Apify. Basically, we just need this get dataset items. We're going to come in here and we're just going to search for default. And we need the default dataset ID coming from the node before. Clean transformation, great. Format JSON. This says maximum number of items returned. So remember, we set the limit to 50, but like if you have 10,000 records, like go ahead, like crank this up to like, 10,000 or 100,000 records, right? Just go ahead and click save. And for here, I'm just going to copy this dataset ID from down here, just so I can show you that if we go ahead and right click, run this module only, I'll paste in the dataset ID, go ahead, click OK. And now you can see we actually have this entire list coming out of Apify. First name, last name, LinkedIn URL, their job title, the organization they work for, the headline, right? So much good information that we can use in order to research this person, in order to create a really personalized cold email at the end of the day. I'm actually going to add one more field in here because I actually think the LinkedIn URL might come in handy at some point. So now that we have this all set up, I'm actually just going to go ahead and I'm going to connect this to Sheets, to Google Sheets, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a row. I'm going to go ahead to My Connection. I'm just going to go ahead and search for cold email automation. Sheet name is just going to be Sheet 1. Great, and now we have our values, first name, last name, company, job title, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we can do here is we can actually just go ahead and go first name, last name. Let's see, let's find the organization, right? Organization name, job title, This is their headline. I actually don't think this is necessarily, here's the job title down here. Company website is going to come from the organization URL. We haven't done any research yet. We do want to grab their email address right here. We do want to grab the LinkedIn URL if it exists from here. And we haven't created any personalized message. And you can see that there might be other information that you want to grab from here. They have their phone numbers, right? They have employment history. There's one other thing that I actually thought might be kind of interesting, which is either like keywords, or if you come down here into industries or secondary industries, these might actually give you ideas for different types of search terms that you can use for your next lead search. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click save. And just to save me some credits, I'm just going to go ahead and unlink all of this. And I'm just going to move the little stopwatch over to here. And I'm just going to hard code in this dataset ID just for now. I can go ahead and click save, and I can go ahead and I can click run. This is actually going to go ahead and insert all of this information into our database here. And you can see everything populating in right now. And obviously I'm going to get rid of all this neon green highlighting. I only need this for the top row, but that's okay. Cool. So while this is going over here, let's go ahead and we can go ahead and you can see we have all 50 entries in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to do the same thing over in N8N. So let's hop in here, and we need to do this a little bit differently. We actually need to do this with an HTTP request. They don't have a built-in module. That's okay. We basically want to click post. And I'm just going to expand this screen a little bit so you can see. So basically, this is the Apify API documentation. This basically shows you how to make all sorts of API requests, which is really, really great. The only one I literally have ever used is this run actor synchronously with input and get dataset items. So remember, this is going to wait for it to finish scraping, and it's actually going to get the dataset for us all in one query. So we don't actually have to call Apify more than one time. So basically the thing we're looking for here is just this curl. what's really great, this is already created for us. So all we have to do is just copy all of this. Literally want to copy everything in here. And if we come back into N8N, we can just go ahead and click import curl, and we can go ahead and we can just paste this in and go to import. And now you can see this is actually loaded everything in for us. We don't need to learn how to make this request ourselves. There's a couple different things we need to change. One is we need to change the actor ID, and two, we need to put in our API key. So let's just do the API key first, since we already had it popped up here. I'll just go ahead and copy that. Come back in here, we see this bearer space. You need to keep the word bearer and the space. And then up here, we actually need to get the ID, which is if we come into the Apollo Scraper actor, we can just copy this from the top up here. This is the ID right up here in the URL. So we'll just copy this, and we will replace actor ID. Sometimes there's an extra slash in here. Make sure there isn't an extra slash. The only other thing we need is that same JSON. I'm just going to switch this to using JSON. And remember, we want to grab the JSON from here. So I'll just copy this. I will paste this in. And then again, instead of the HTTP request or the URL from there, we actually want the URL. We've got to turn this to expression. We actually want the URL coming from our ChatGPT module. And so now you can see we have our 50 total records. We have the URL that ChatGPT created, and we're good to go. And so now we can just click test step. Just give this a second to run. We should get that exact same list coming back from the Apollo scraper. So this finished. This literally took like 5 seconds, and you can see we still have the same names, Kyle Everett, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, Kyle. And this is the thing I was talking about, that it looks like this actually pulls in a little bit better inside of N8N. Maybe it's just the way it was showing up in Make, but these keywords here, you can start to see marketplace insights, brand positioning, culture trend reporting, measurement analytics. So I think that's kind of interesting. You can see we have these other industries and secondary industries, which maybe is a great place for you to find more leads from. So from there, we can just say this, scrape leads. We can just go ahead and we can go for Google. And actually, we can come down here into Sheets. What we can do is we can append row in Sheets or add a row. We'll just come in here. We'll go to our list. We have this cold email automation. And all we want is the same. We want Sheet 1. And I'll just go to the schema view here because I think that's a little bit easier to read. And we can just do the same thing. We're just going to drag in the first name. We're going to drag in the last name. This person's job title. The organization name goes into the company. The company website is down here under organization. And the last thing we had was email address and LinkedIn URL. So we have the LinkedIn URL and we had the email address coming from here. Super cool. So now basically we have all of the information, and I'm not going to run this again because we basically already have it. And so we have all this information inside of the spreadsheet. And so now what we need to do is we need to research these people, and we need to actually create a personalized email. This part's actually really simple, and I would not overthink this. I'll start in make.com. I'll go ahead and add a module. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go to Google Sheets. I'm just going to go to search rows. And we'll find our same worksheet that we're working on. We'll go into Sheet 1. And filter is basically, I want to just make sure that we research does not exist, right? So basically, once we've researched this, we don't need to do this again. And it doesn't really matter how we order this. We can set a limit if we only want a few. And let's just go ahead and we'll set this limit to 5 or something like that. And I don't need this. I don't know where that came from. And I can just go ahead and move this stopwatch here. So now if I go ahead and click run this module only, basically it's going to get 5 rows for us of all the information that we filled in. This is really great. And we can just go ahead and do the same thing really quickly inside of N8N. What I love about N8N is that basically it allows you to have multiple triggers in the same workspace, which is really, really helpful. So I want to do get rows and sheet. We're just going to do the same thing. Cold email. Sheet 1. Cool. And then from there, you don't actually need to do anything else. So if we go ahead and we test step, this is actually going to return all 50 items for us. And what we can do is we can just go ahead and here, we can add a limit, and we can literally just limit this to 5. So it's actually just going to return the first 5 items. So in order to actually run this, we actually need to add a manual trigger to do this manually. Or what we can do is we can actually add a schedule trigger and basically set this to run however often we want. And so basically we could set this to run every single day and just find like the top 20, write emails, send emails using our Gmail. We're not going to get flagged for being too spammy, or we don't need to like use a third-party service like instantly or Phantom Buster to send a bunch of emails. We can just send a few a day. And really, if you send 10 emails a day over the course of a month, that's 300 emails in a month. If you get a few clients out of that, I think you're doing really well. So now we can just go ahead, we can click test workflow. It's going to read all of the data. It's just going to go ahead in here, and it's just going to return the top five items. And if we go into the JSON, we can see all of this information here. So now what we need to do is we basically need to do a little bit of extra research. So I'm just going to go to OpenAI here, and I'm going to message a model. And I'm just going to go ahead and select my own account. I'm going to go ahead into here from the list and type in search. And I'll just go ahead and use just the normal search preview. I think that's fine. And I'm just going to go ahead and type in, I'm going to make this a little bigger, research everything you can about this person. And we'll just go ahead and put in the first name. Turn this to an expression so we can actually access this. First name, let's go ahead, make this a little bigger. First name, last name. We'll just say job title at company. Return any particularly interesting facts or accomplishments this person has achieved. Just say something like that. Go ahead and we'll go ahead and test this step. This did take a second to run because this was actually searching all 5 of our people, which is great. You can see here we have some details about them as an accomplished creative professional with over 2 decades of experience in art and creative direction, specializing in themed marketing, yada, yada, yada. And this goes ahead and does this for every person. And so I'm just going to go ahead and hit P to pin this data so we don't actually have to do the search all over again. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an HTTP request to get some information about this person's company. So we can just go ahead and here, we can basically see we have the Google Sheet and we have the company website. So we can just go ahead here, scrape this website. I'm just going to go ahead and test this step too. Great. So really quickly, you can see we've actually scraped all 5 items from these websites. These are going to be really, really long, and we want to be able to kind of look through these and parse these down. Now, since this HTML is actually like obscenely long, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use ChatGPT to help create a little bit of code to clean this up. So I'm just going to go to chatgpt.com and I'm going to say, I need a JavaScript code for an N8N function to clean up HTML and extract only relevant information. So basically, this is just removing any script and style tags, any comments, et cetera, et cetera. It's normalizing the white space. And so let's see what this comes up with. So if we come in here, we can just go ahead and we can add the code. And unfortunately, in make.com, you can't do this unless you want to pay for it, but it is helpful to be able to do it inside of here. So it didn't return anything. So we can say this is the data structure. Paste in the data structure, which is super long, but now it actually has an idea of what it's looking for. So let's see if we come in here, we can update this code. Hopefully this is going to work this time. I'm not a coder or developer. I don't really know how this stuff works. Great. So basically it was looking for some sort of thing called Cheerio, which is presumably third party, and we don't have access to this inside of N8N. But we're going to go ahead here. Cool. So after a little bit of back and forth with ChatGPT, basically we have all the output now just from the websites, which is basically summarizing all of the text or pulling out all of the text from the website. This is a lot easier for ChatGPT to work with to pull out something interesting. So I'm just going to go ahead and come in here, click the plus, go to OpenAI. We'll message a model, choose my account, and we'll do 4.1. And we'll just say, create a succinct summary about this company. Include 3 bullet points, not 34, about anything particularly interesting or notable they've accomplished. Just go ahead, add the expression. Just come in here and we can just paste this text right in there. Go ahead and click test step. We'll let this run through for a second. And in just a couple seconds, we should have a little analysis from every single company that we just researched. Cool. You can see here, now we have a little summary for every single company. So one thing you will have to do is add this little row number here. And I just typed this simple formula inside of Google Sheets, row, and then to parentheses, and then just dragged it down to create all of these extra rows. Because basically what I found out is that N8N actually won't let me match on the row number, which is kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. But now that if I go in here, I can just say row. Now I can match the row number to the row number up here. And I actually don't need anything else. I don't need first name, last name, company, job title, website, anything like that. What I can do is I can just go ahead and I can pipe the research into this field here. Come down here and I can do content and pipe that into research. Before I do this, one last thing I want to do. So I want to actually create our personalized message. So this is really the last step before we update everything. Just going to go ahead. We'll do message model again. Come down here and we'll choose 4.0 for this. I think it writes a little bit better than 4.1. Maybe that's just me. Choose 4.0. And I have this little email prompt here. That's basically a little template that I like to use. Let's come in here. I'll make this a little bit bigger. I'll just say you are an expert in cold email outreach. This is the system message. You will be given a person's first name, their job title and company, and some research about them and the company. Your task is to complete the provided template given this information. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this template. Again, I'll provide access for this inside the school community. Go ahead and paste a template in there. And one other thing you can say is like some information about me. And you can say like, I build cold outreach systems for companies. On average, I book them 20 calls a month and generate over 100K in revenue, something like that. Whatever this is that's relevant to you, again, that basically the system comes in here. You can also say like, I do this with AI automations and workflows. Now we can come in here and just in this prompt section, go ahead, we can open this up and we can say first name, grab the first name, all the way back in this list here, we can go first name and say job title. I actually think I want to take this from the limit. We can say first name, job title. You can say company name. Then we can say personal research. And come up here to our personal research. And then we can say company research. Great. And just go ahead and click test step. Cool. And you can see here that we have, hi, Kyle. Really enjoyed learning about your work on the Adidas Alpha Balance Instinct seating kit. The way you bring products to life through creative presentation is truly impressive. Wanted to reach out. I specialize in building cold outreach systems for companies. On average, I do this, that, and the other, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so now we've just filled out our template, all automated with AI. And we can come in here now and we can go ahead. We can just update this with the personalized message, which is great. And now if I go ahead and I click test step, we should basically have 5 different outputs updating into Google Sheets with our personalized message and any research about them in case we want to reference this later on. If you want to go ahead and do this in make.com, you would generally do the same thing, right? We can just go ahead and we can copy our prompts here and we can go into ChatGPT. We can create a completion. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this over now since we're working inside of make. Type in search, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a message. This is a user message, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste this in. And now you can see, okay, research everything we need to know about this person. So this is first name, last name. So we can just go ahead and say first name, last name. This is job title at the job company. So we can go job title at the company here. Turning particularly interesting facts, et cetera, et cetera. This is great. And just for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and change this limit. I'm just going to go ahead and change this limit just to 1 so that we can only run this through with 1 person. So now if I go ahead and click run once, we can go ahead, we can run this through. ChatGPT is going to go ahead and search the web and do a little bit of research for us. You can see we're now looking for John Fleming. We can come in here, we can see the result, and we basically have all this information on John. Super helpful. The next thing we did is actually the same on both platforms. We're basically going to do get a file from a given website. And so for the company website, we can just go ahead and pipe in the company website. I'm just going to go ahead and run this one more time, just so we can go ahead, get the company website. We're going to research John again a little bit. I wish that Make.com had the ability to pin data like it does inside of N8N, but there are some trade-offs. From here, since I said we can't use code, I'm just going to do HTML to Markdown. Basically, we're just going to grab the data from before this, and we're just going to run through this whole thing right now before we get to the end. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to create a succinct summary about this company. So we're just going to use ChatGPT again for that. We're going to go create a completion. Do the model. Actually, the model for this, we can choose 4.1, add a message. This is going to be a user message. Go ahead and paste this in about this company and everything they've accomplished. And we can just go ahead here. We'll paste the markdown in. This is going to come from before. Go ahead and click save. And if we come back into our N8N flow, the next thing we have here is the personalization. So we're just going to do the expert and cold email outreach. You can just go ahead and clone this module, put this over here. We can keep this to 4.0. And we're just going to add a message here because we want this to be the system message. And we'll paste in the system message. Want to make sure we copy all of this. Okay, great. And we need the user message. So I'll just copy all of this too. Now what we need to do is we actually just need to remove everything from here. We can basically come in here. We'll grab the first name. We'll grab the job title. We'll grab the company name. We'll grab personal research. And we will grab the company research, which will come from here. Go ahead and click save, and I'll just rename this personal message. And we'll save this as company research. Always good to label everything, and this will be personal research. Okay, great. Go ahead and click save. And at the end, we can go ahead and go to Google Sheets. We can update a row, find our cold email automation sheet, sheet name, sheet 1. And then the row number will actually go down here. And we can actually click the row number, which exists here if we'd like. We don't need first name, last name, company website, etc. We do want the research coming out of the personal research. Actually do this, and we could even say like personal research, which actually I don't think I did in N8N, but you get the idea. Then we can do company research. Go ahead and click that. And then the personalized message, come in here, add the message, go ahead and click save. So now if I go ahead and run this through once, researching a little bit about John, we're going to go ahead, we're going to search up some information about his company. We're going to convert that to Markdown so that ChatGPT has an easier time with it. Now we're crafting the personal message for him. And once this is done, we're going to store all of that information inside of Google Sheets. And we should see this pop in here in just a second. You can see now we have all of this research that we've done for him, and we even have this little cold email ready to go. So if you found this video helpful, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Pop into the school community if you want to have access to the workflows that we built today. Make sure you check out this video up here about how you can create an entire LinkedIn automation inside of N8N. I'll see you over there.